right, let's talk bills and how to read bills and how to calculate consumption versus production. This is probably one of the singular biggest points of contention that customers have because they don't understand the differences. They look at their bill and they will call me up and say, hey, I only got this much credit. But I go to my monitoring site to look at my panels and it says I produced this much. So who's lying? What's going on? Why am I not getting this? Why didn't I get all that credit? What's going on? And there's a couple reasons for it. Number one, they don't understand the difference between the solar production and the credit and what is involved with that. The other thing that most customers don't understand is that when solar is produced, when your panels are producing electricity, they go directly into the house. So your house, you're consuming immediately a large percentage of the solar that you are producing. It doesn't see the grid, it never goes to utility. Now, there are some utilities where everything that you produce goes to the grid and you get a credit, and then you're pulling electricity from the grid, and then the difference is what you're charged. So you get a credit, and it all goes to the grid, and the utility calculates what you owe or what they owe you at the end of the month. But that's rare. There's only a few that I've heard of that do that. Most utilities never see and never know how much electricity you produce. I've actually had customers tell me, hey, I talked to my utility and they said that I'm not producing enough, or I'm not doing this, or I'm not getting enough credit, whatever. And I always have to have the conversation with them and say, look, your utility doesn't know anything about your production. All they know is how much electricity you send them. They have no idea how much electricity your panels are producing, because that's energy that's created from your panels goes right into your house and is consumed. So that's the first thing that people just need to understand. A lot of your electricity will never see the grid, and you will not know how much you produce unless you pull up your monitoring system and run reports. So let's talk about the bills. I'm going to have a video here, presentation. I'm going to kind of walk you through several bills that I've seen. The biggest problem, and I'll talk about it, is that bills vary from utility to utility. So what I'm going to show you are just 3 examples of the utilities bills. What they have on them are pretty similar to all utility bills, but you will have to kind of make sure you know how to read your utility bill. And then I'm going to talk about how to look at your consumption and then to calculate what your total consumption is. And we'll discuss about that later.
All right, let's look at how to read a bill. And this is a difficult thing to discuss because so many bills are different. All bills are different. Every utility has their own way of doing it and calculating this and showing it. So I've got a couple examples here. So in this utility actually does a pretty good job of kind of laying out the information. So the first thing you can see here is the meter number. All bills will show a meter number. They will show a from and to date. So this is the period of time that the bill is for. In this case, it's 35 days. It will show the previous meter readings and the current, along with the solar credit reading. So how much electricity was actually sent to the grid. In this case, for this period of time, the customer used 613 kilowatt hours. They got a credit of 121 kilowatt hours. That does not mean their system only produced 121 kilowatt hours. It just means that out of however much electricity they produced, they only sent 121 kilowatt hours to the utility. This is one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they get solar and they don't understand their bill or their production, is they see this and assume that their system only produced 121 kilowatt hours. We'll discuss that and show you some examples, or I'll show you a way or how to read your production and to kind of calculate your total consumption. So let's go down to another bill here. Again, You got the billing period right here. You've got the meter number. You got the read dates and their base charge. This is the amount that they charge monthly, whether you have, if you have solar. And then there's energy charge. So they used a certain amount of energy at 13 cents a kilowatt hour. And then if you see here in green, it says GME Renewable Rewards Credit. So they sent 95 credit hours to the grid. So out of whatever their system produced, they only sent 95 credit hours to the grid, and they got a $13 credit. But this is what most bills will look like, something like this or this, where you will see, hey, what I use from the utility and what my credit for the utility is. Now, how do you calculate total consumption and production and stuff like that? So here's another bill. Again, you can see the meter date, the metering date from and to. So this was August 18, 2020 to September 22, 2020. You can see the meter number. There's some other information here as far as, okay, what their average usage was this month, last month. These are all good things to know. Main thing here, okay, they used 1,331 kilowatt hours from the utility. You can see down here, their net metering, they sent 752 kilowatt hours back to the utility, and they got a credit of 0.067 cents per kilowatt hour for a total credit of $50.70. So again, this is not what they produced in their solar panels. It's just what they sent to the grid. How do we calculate what their production versus consumption was? So let's look at this customer's production for that same period of time. Remember, this period of time was 18 August through 22 September. So I ran a report 18 August 2020 to September 22, 2020. Most monitoring sites, whether they're Enphase or Hoy Miles or AP systems, will allow you to run a report like this for your system to allow you to calculate your consumption and to see your production. So in this case, for this period of time, this system, these panels produced 1.91 megawatt hours of electricity. That's a lot of, this was a big system. So let's recap. They used 1,331 kilowatt hours from the utility. They had a credit of 752 kilowatt hours from their system. Now, their solar energy that was produced by their panels was 1.91 megawatt hours, or 1,910 kilowatt hours. So that means out of the 1,910 kilowatt hours that their solar panels produced for that period of time, they used 1,158 kilowatt hours immediately that month. That means that when whatever power their system was producing, they were using that power during the day with all the stuff that they have running. So computers, TVs, lights, utilities, or not utilities, excuse me, refrigerators, things like that. They're always using electricity. So they had 1,910 kilowatt hours of electricity produced by their solar panels. How did I get 1,158 that consumed? I took the 1910, subtracted 752, which was the credit that they received, which means that what was left over was actually consumed. They did not get a credit for this, so that means that this 1,158 kilowatt hours was what was immediately used by their house and by the customer. Now, how do we calculate total usage for the month? We take the 1,331 kilowatt hours of electricity that they use from the utility, and we add it to the 1,158 kilowatt hours that was used immediately by their house from the solar panels. So that means for that month, they used 2,489 kilowatt hours, the 1,331 plus 1,158. Now, why is this good to know? Because you can compare, and in this situation, I actually compared the consumption from the previous year when they didn't have solar, and they had increased their consumption drastically. And that is a mistake a lot of people make. I will continue to discuss that in just a second. But if you have any questions on this, I will actually put this up in just a second again as I continue.
All right, so we've kind of reviewed bills a little bit. I challenge anyone who has solar, or if you're thinking about going solar, making sure that you understand how to read your bill and also how to run reports on your monitoring system, whatever system you're using, if it's Enphase, Hoy Miles, AP systems, um, if it's a string inverter system, they all have a monitoring software. They all have something that you can monitor and run a report and understand how much your system is producing. Understand how to calculate your consumption and your total consumption, and then compare it to bills from the year before. You have to compare apples to apples to apples. So, if you had solar in 2020 and you didn't have solar in 2019, run a bill for June, June or July of 2019, and then run the production report for June or July of 2020 for your solar, and compare. Do a consumption analysis. See how much you're actually consuming versus the year before. So you can start seeing if you have increased your consumption. The biggest mistake that I see people make when they get solar is they think they have free electricity, and then all of a sudden they start consuming more electricity. And then they blame the solar company for the fact that they're actually using more electricity or their bills are higher. So take these things that I've talked about, go learn your system, or if you're going to get solar, then make sure this is one of the things that you need to understand is how do I monitor my production and how can I calculate my total consumption. Again, thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, please put them in the comments. Please hit the like button and please subscribe to help me build this channel. Thank you.